Welcome, brothers and sisters, to another daily devotional with Stephen, the Saved Schizophrenic. I appreciate you guys joining me today. First and foremost, I want to let you guys know this is going to be a longer video, probably an hour or more. It might take about 10-15 minutes chunks. If your attention span is not great, break it up into pieces. Just want to warn you, it's going to be longer than usual. Today we're talking about a combination of mental health and faith. So the devotional piece will be the second part of this video, and the first part will be mental health. I want to get it out of the way right away that when we talk about mental health and faith, Jesus Christ and our relationship with him, I talk about my experience firsthand. I don't speak on behalf of anyone. I only speak on my experience, my life, and the choices I've made. So please don't think I'm speaking on behalf of anyone. Even when I speak on addiction and schizophrenia and different struggles, I speak for myself. So please understand that. We're going to talk about mental health first, and I'm going to be talking about two different things that I wrote today that were meaningful to me. And so I'm going to share them with you, and I hope they're meaningful. I hope they're relatable. I hope that, and I pray that we can connect in terms of experiences and struggles, that you feel less alone and you feel like someone understands you, because that's one of the most important aspects of life is feeling understood, feeling like someone gets it or gets you. Because when you feel like someone gets you, you don't feel stranded, you don't feel alone, you don't feel trapped, because someone understands. So that's what I'm going for today. The first part of mental health I want to talk about is the fight within. And it's really about having the courage to keep going, to not give up. And for a lot of people, that's hard to do, to keep going, to keep struggling, to endure till the end. It is so hard to do that sometimes, especially when you've been fighting for so long, when you've been fighting for months, maybe for weeks, for months, for years. You feel like you have no more energy left. You feel like, what am I fighting for if it never ends, if this struggle never ceases? And so I want to be honest and real and transparent with you that it's difficult to keep fighting. If you have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or a depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder, or if you're just struggling mentally with suicidal thoughts or self-harm and cutting yourself, to keep fighting can feel like a burden. It can feel like a tragedy in itself, because you're like, this pain never ends. I wake up and I'm in pain. I get dressed, I take a shower, I brush my teeth, and all I can see in the mirror is this disgusting, horrible sinner, this degenerate person. And it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror because you don't see someone worthy of respect. You don't see someone worthy of love. And so it makes it hard to continue to fight, to live on, when you don't see yourself as a person, worthy of respect, worthy of love, worthy of affection. It's hard to treat yourself kindly with kindness. And when people do treat you with kindness, you're taken back and surprised, and you think it's a trick because you're like, I don't deserve this. So you want something from me. You're doing this for a reason. What's your purpose? Why are you actually doing this? Why are you treating me this way? Why are you treating me this way? So you doubt people. You doubt people's intentions. And so I want to talk about this fight within that I go through on a daily basis. So let us begin. Each morning is a battlefield. I wake, eyes open, but the war has already begun. The voices stir before I rise, whispers at the edge of my ears. Doubt stitched into every word, hallucinations play across the walls. Like shadows that refuse to rest, to stand is an act of defiance. To breathe is a declaration, I'm still here. This is courage, choosing life before the day even begins. And it is. Choosing life before the day begins. It's defiance. It's an act of courage. It's an act of rebellion, because you're rebelling against your feelings. You're rebellious against your emotions, against everything that's happening in your mind, in your body, in your heart, to where that negativity, and for me specifically, my schizophrenia, the voices, the paranoia, the delusions, the disorganized thinking is attacking me even when I wake up. And so when I'm fighting against it, I'm fighting for my life. It's a war. And so I'm defying the very thing that wants to take the power away from me. And that war in the morning sometimes can be too much. Sometimes I lose and it takes over, and it leads to self-harm. It leads to me hurting myself. It can lead to a dangerous situation to where I'm a danger to myself and a danger to other people. And that battle in the morning can go either way, guys. I'm telling you this to be honest, that battle in the morning against my schizophrenia can go either way sometimes. It's not a lock-in for me. It's not, 90 to 10% chance. I don't have an overwhelming victory. It really is life and death. It's 50-50 at that point, to where I very well could lose. So, schizophrenia is a storm that wears my face, a mirror that distorts, a river that pulls even when I want to stand still. Paranoia paints enemies where there are none. Fear bleeds into every corner, and trust becomes a fragile glass, ready to shatter, but I gather my strength, piece by piece, a quiet rebellion against a mind that tries to swallow me whole. And that's what it does. My mind tries to swallow me whole every day, to where the voices degrade me, they talk about me, they talk crap, they ridicule me, they're violent, they're vulgar. And the thing that gets me the most is the violence, to where they just say the most hurtful, harmful things you can imagine. And it's worse than a scary movie. It's worse than a horror movie, because I can't run away. I can't escape. And they follow me everywhere. So imagine living your life and every day is a scary horror movie, and that horror movie character, that killer, that slasher, that bad guy, that villain is always around you and never leaves. Imagine just how terrifying that could be. And that's my life. Survival is not passive. It is a fight with my own reflection, with the weight of unseen chains, with nights that stretch longer than time itself. Some victories are invisible, finishing a meal, walking into a crowded room, holding on to reality when the edges blur. I carry these triumphs that, like medals, no one else can see. They remind me I am stronger than the illness that tries to define me. And it's the small things that really help me the most, to where if I can get through the morning, that's a small win for me. If I can eat lunch, that's a small win for me. If I can drink my coffee, and that's a small win for me. And those small wins build up to where I have a little bit of courage. As the small wins build up, that's when I can be like, maybe I can get through this. Maybe today is not a total failure. And that's what is important to me at the small wins. Courage is not loud. It does not roar like thunder. It is a whisper in the dark. Keep going. It is lifting one foot then another when the weight of the world presses down on my chest. It is smiling, even faintly, when despair insists on silence. It is the fragile but steady truth that I am more than the war inside my head. And I struggle with that. I struggle with, am I more than my illness? Am I more than just a schizophrenic? And I struggle with that because mental health, even though that doesn't define who you are, it defines some of who you are. Just like an athlete, just like someone who plays baseball, basketball, football, or tennis, or golf, they are an athlete. And that defines a little bit of their personality, a little bit of who they are, a little bit about their passions. If they're an athlete, they're passionate about the game they play. And in the same way, schizophrenia is a part of who I am. And so I'm passionate about my mental health, and I'm passionate about being an advocate for my mental health. And so it's a little bit of who I am. But at the same time, I'm like, it's not everything about me. I'm more than that. And it's sometimes hard to think of myself as more than just a schizophrenic because of the way my schizophrenia just hammers me every day and insults me every day and just tries to bury me alive, literally. And so it's hard to justify to myself that I'm more than this. I have other passions, other hobbies. There's things about me that are unique, are special, that people like, that people care about me because I have X, Y, and Z attributes that they like. And so it's a fight, definitely. I fight for moments of peace, for the sunlight warming my face, for the laughter of a friend who sees beyond the illness, for the gentle rhythm of prayer that steadies my breath. I fight because joy exists even when buried deep. I fight because happiness, though fleeting, is real when it arrives. And on those days when peace rests on my shoulders, I realize survival is not only endurance, it is living fully with scars that shine like armor. And that's what survival feels like sometimes, that your armor is protecting you, and even though your armor has scratches on it, has dents on it, has that blood and glory and that blood, sweat, and tears, you can't help but look at all the battles you've been in, all the times you fought and won or lost. And for me specifically, it's easier for me to look at the battles I've lost than won, because I've lost more battles than I've won. I've been hospitalized 4 or 5 times. I've been in detox 3-4 times. I've been to AA meetings. I've had a number of different sponsors. I've relapsed 3-4 times. I've shot up and went back to drugs, and my addiction has won and beat me over the head several times. So seeing the bad sometimes for me is easier because it's right there. It yells at me and tells me, you're nothing, you're worthless. Look at all these times you messed up. But it's that armor we're wearing that I need to look at more. I need to be brave and be like, this armor's protecting me. The reason why I can make these videos is because of the armor I'm wearing. It's the armor of God. It's God who's given me this armor, this chest plate, this belt, this sword, this shield. Heavenly Father has prepared me for this, and I need to remember that. There are days I fall, days when shadows win, when reality bends, when I feel too small to hold myself together. But even then, I rise again. My courage is stitched with broken threads, but it holds. Every setback is not the end. It is a pause, a place to gather breath before I continue the climb. The mountain is steep, but the view above is worth the struggle. And it is. The struggle is worth it. That's something I have to convince myself quite often, actually, that the struggle is worth it because of how much it hurts, because of how much pain the struggle inflicts upon me. And it's hard, actually, for a lot of people to be like, yeah, the struggle is worth it, because it hurts so much. And you don't want to hurt. You don't want to feel pain. You don't want to cry. You don't want to bleed. And while you're going through that struggle, you're like, this sucks. But it's only afterwards, when you have courage and you persevere and you endure and you get to where you're going, you're like, okay, so I had to go through X, Y, and Z to be able to arrive to my destination, to where I was meant to arrive. It's that journey that sometimes sucks big time, because that journey is filled with horror, sorrow, tragedy, pain, setback, loss, friendships ending, relationships going sideways and just destroying you. That journey can be a lot. I survive because I choose to, because my story matters, even when written in trembling lines, because somewhere inside is a flame that will not die, hope, fragile but fierce. Fighting back the dark, schizophrenia may bend me, but it does not break me. Every day I stand is proof of my strength, a testimony of resilience, a song of survival, sung through fractured chords. And that's something I have to remind myself every day, that I am surviving, even though I'm schizophrenic, even though it causes a lot of pain. I'm here. I'm still surviving. I'm still living day by day. And that's a win for me. It's a win for me because of how bad my schizophrenia can be sometimes, to where how destructive it can be in my life, to where it's destroyed relationships with friends, with family, with loved ones, with spouses, with girlfriends, with lovers. It's destroyed a lot. And I need to remember that I'm here. I'm still here. Even despite the times I've tried to end my life, the times where I've given up and I thought it wasn't worth living, I still have to remember I'm here. I got through those periods in my life. Even though they were difficult and hard to get through and I barely survived, I did end up surviving. So there has to be a purpose, a point for me. There's a reason I'm still here. I have a mission, that God-given mission. Heavenly Father has given me a purpose. And I finally found that purpose, which is to preach the gospel, which is to preach and share the good news of the Good Shepherd, of the Messiah, the Lord, the King of Kings. And that's my purpose, to spread the good message of Jesus Christ. And so I live, not perfectly, not without scars, but bravely. I walk through fire and still find beauty in the ash. I stand in storms and still seek the rainbow. I fight because survival is not surrender. It is victory. Courage is my companion. Faith is my weapon, and love is my shield. I am still here. I will keep fighting, and in that fight I discover the strength to survive. Not just to exist, but to live. And that's what it is about when it comes to courage and fighting. It's about trying to live, not just survive, but to live. Because there's a difference between surviving and living. Surviving, you're struggling, and it's just every day is a battle. And when you survive that battle, you barely can breathe because you have scars and wounds and you're bleeding, and you need to get stitched up by a medic, and you need friends to care about you and support. And so you're barely surviving because you feel like you can be dead tomorrow. You feel like tomorrow might be too much for you because you barely survived today. But living is about enjoying life. It's about having joy and peace, serenity, about being passionate about something, whether it's, movies or music or board games or going on walks or being passionate about exercise or passionate about books, something of loving and just wanting life to be more about just surviving another day. But that's the first part about mental health that I wanted to talk about, which is just fighting, having courage to keep going. This second part about mental health, I wanted to talk about what it means and what it looks like when a person ends up maybe losing that battle, losing that struggle to where they get hospitalized and they're institutionalized. And this part, I'm speaking on my behalf of what I've experienced when I've been locked up in a psych ward, and to where I don't have a choice, to where I'm locked up against my will because I'm a danger to myself or a danger to other people. I I wanted to talk about what it is like to be held against your will in a hospital. Because it's a thing, it happens. It happens to quite a few people, more than you would think, to where doctors put you on 72-hour holds and you have a nurse that's 24/7 in your room. You have a security guard who's sitting in front of your room watching you. You have people who do 15-minute checks on you because they think you might end your life. You might try to end your life. And so I wanted to talk about what it is like to be in that situation. And again, this is my experience. This isn't everybody's experience. I'm not talking on behalf of anyone. But what I'll say is I've talked to enough people, enough schizophrenics, that a lot of people have said, I've been through the same thing. I've experienced similar things. You are not the only one that has been through what you're about to describe. So just keep in mind, this isn't just a one-off experience. I've talked to other people who mentally struggle and have been locked up, and they have experienced something similar. So here we go. The doors hiss shut behind me, steel mouth swallowing my last taste of freedom. I can hear them lock, a click, a slam, a sound that does not belong to mercy. The hall smells like bleach and decay, a perfume of forgotten bodies, shadows stretched too long under fluorescent light, bent and broken, like prisoners waiting to be named. They take my clothes, strip me down to numbers and wristbands. No more name, no more story, just another chart, another diagnosis. Another hollow shell shuffled through the system. My heartbeat whispers rebellion, but the walls don't care. They are thick with secrets. They have heard 1,000 screams before mine. I feel them pressing inward, closing the sky above my head. And that's what I have felt, to where when I go to a psychiatric unit, when I'm locked up in a hospital against my will, it's like I lose my name, I lose who I am, and I'm just a number, I'm just a patient, and I'm just, another patient file. And I don't feel human. I don't feel like I'm treated like a human being. I'm treated like just another patient number with a diagnosis, and they're doing their best to try to shuffle me in and out as fast as they can. That's what I feel like. And that's what a lot of schizophrenics I've talked to have shared, that when they go to a psychiatric unit, they feel like just another piece in the machine, just another clog in the machine, to where the machine tries to get people in, get people sorted out, get people a diagnosis, a assessment, a safety plan, and then once they get that safety plan, they usher them out of the machine and into the real world, and they say, fend for yourself. And there's no safety harness, there's no support. It's just, here's your diagnosis, here's the assessment, here's your safety plan, now go, get out of here, the real world is there, good luck. That's what it feels like sometimes, and that's not support. That's not what should happen when it comes to people who need support, who are struggling mentally. They need more than that. So, the bed is a slab of stone, thin sheets like paper over bone. Every sound is an enemy, the buzz of the lights, the slam of a door down the hall, the coughing of a man who never stops. I close my eyes, but closing them only opens another world. Faces creep from the corners, eyes stitch from smoke and fire. They whisper my name, in voices not their own. I try to hide beneath the blanket, but the blanket is no shield. It is see-through. It is nothing against what lives inside my skull. The nurse passes, her shoes echo like gunshots. She peers in with cold efficiency, like she's checking a box, not a heart. I want to scream. but the scream gets lost in my throat because here, every scream is just another piece of paperwork. And that's what I'm talking about. It feels like we're just paperwork. It feels like we're just, there's another one, let's get to it. We know the routine, we know what we did before. And it feels like just a mechanical machine at that point, to where every 15 minutes we're checked on, and there's a routine, and you see your doctor who might prescribe medication, you see the psychiatrist who is there for 20-25 minutes, and he's like, talk about your feelings for 20 minutes, and then I'm only going to see you maybe once or twice other times, probably once before you leave. And it's like, you see your doctor a couple times, you see a psychiatrist a couple times, you see a social worker maybe once or twice, but more or less you see the nurse every day, because they're the ones holding down the fort. They're the ones holding down the psychiatric unit, the ward. And so it's a terrible feeling to have when you don't feel human, you don't feel cared for, you don't feel supported. You feel like the medical professionals are just checking boxes, that they're like, I did this, I did this, I did this, okay, boom, we checked all the boxes, okay, give him his paperwork and kick him out the door. That's a terrible way to live. That's a terrible way to structure a form of help that people need. I know you have to have some kind of structure and paperwork and forms when you have a psychiatric unit, when you have a cuckoo for Cocoa Puff psych ward, that you have to have some kind of structure, but at least put heart into it, put soul into it, put sincerity into it. At least be human. Treat people like they're human beings. Stop treating people like they're just numbers, like they're just machines, like they're just there for you to check your boxes and be like, okay, we completed the assessment, completed the paperwork, they have their medication, okay, that's all they need, replace them with the next person. It's terrible. They come with cups of chalk and poison, take it, they say, as if obedience is salvation. The pills roll bitter on my tongue, little anchors dragging me down into someone else's silence. My hands tremble, are they mine? The medicine makes me heavy, makes me dream of walls folding in, of clocks melting over my face. I wonder if I'm carrying anything at all, or just becoming easier to manage, like a wild animal sedated in a cage. I try to ask questions, but their eyes glaze over. They have heard this plea before from 1,000 broken mouths. Trust us, they say, but trust is a luxury, and in this place, luxury doesn't exist. And that's what I feel. When I'm in a psych ward, it's like they're not trying to, and I know there's not a cure for schizophrenia, and for a lot of mental health diagnoses, there's not per se a cure, but it's like they're not trying to help us get better. They're just sedating us to become mindless zombies, because if we're mindless zombies, we're easier to control. We're not like wild animals. And that's what I feel like in the psych ward, to where they're just sedating us so we're easily managed. And I get it, because people who are psychotic, yeah, they can act like wild animals. I get it. I get that. I'm not denying that fact, that when schizophrenics have episodes of psychosis, when they have psychotic episodes, they can act like wild animals. Okay, fine, I admit it. I've been there. I've acted like a wild animal before. But that doesn't mean you should treat us in the way you do, which is give him a sedative, give him some medication, make it so he's a zombie, and we did our job. Once we zombify someone, we've done our job. That's not what your job is. Your job is to be supportive. Your job is to provide people comfort and affection and this type of love to where you're our brother, you're our sister. We want to help you. We want to be there for you. We want to give you support. We want to help you through this struggle. That's what you should be doing. But instead, you're like, no, just give him a sedative, calm him down. Once he's calmed down, give him a routine, give him a structure for a week. And once he's calm enough to where he listens to our instructions and he's not fighting back, then that's okay. Send him back into the real world. That's not proper health care. That's not proper treatment. That's not treatment at all. That's just you filing paperwork and checking boxes. In the day room, we gather like ghosts around plastic tables. A man rocks in his chair, his eyes oceans I cannot swim. Another mutters to himself, words circling like vultures overhead. We are a chorus of fractured voices, none of us singing in tune. I look at their faces and see mirrors. Me tomorrow, me 10 years from now, me hollow, me medicated into stone. I want to run, but where? The windows are bolted, the doors are locked, and outside waits only another cage. We eat in silence, spoons scraping like knives, every mouthful tastes of despair. Even water here feels poisoned, tainted with resignation. I drink it anyway, because thirst is stronger than hope. And that's what it is like, to where there is structure. You have a day room, you have your group therapy, your art room, you have, breakfast at 7, medication at 8, maybe morning arts or morning therapy group, and then you have lunch, and then you have another therapy group or art group. And it's like, this structure is not helping us. You're just trying to get us to be mindless and to be cooperative. You're not actually helping us and giving us the proper tools to where we can be successful in the outside world. You're truly just trying to get us to be mindless zombies, to where we say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. You're just trying to get us to be robots, essentially. And that is not healthcare. That's not treatment. I don't understand how nurses and doctors and therapists and the social workers think what they're doing is treatment. It's not. What you're doing is not providing help. You're just providing an institution that cares more about paperwork and check boxes. You need to seriously reconsider your job and what your purpose is and why you're there and what you're doing. At night it becomes a movie I never asked to star in. The lights flicker, shadows crawl across the ceiling, and the air is thick with screams from rooms down the hall. I see shapes in the corner, too tall, too twisted, their arms too long for the walls to contain. Their teeth click like typewriters, they call me closer, closer. But if I move, the nurses will restrain me, and I've learned restraints are another form of hell. I wonder, what if this is all real, and they are the blind, and I wonder, what if this is all real and they are the ones blind? What if the horror isn't in my mind, but in the world they've built around me? And that's what's sad, is when, as a schizophrenic, when the horror stops being in your mind and the horror starts being what's around you, to where it's this structure that's fake, it's this day room that isn't helpful, to where we're just mindless zombies in a day room playing checkers or playing chess or coloring. You have 40-year-olds, you have adults pretending to be children, coloring all day long. And it's like, that again, that's not treatment. Forcing adults to color because you have no other activities is not treatment. And so we're trapped in this horror of this fake treatment that mental health hospitals and psych wards provide. It's crazy, to where we would rather be symptomatic and schizophrenic than be in this psych ward, because this psych ward is worse than our illness. That's sad. That should not be happening. That's when you know your treatment methods are not working, when we would rather be sick than be in the psych ward. Days blur into one another, no clocks, no freedom, just schedules carved into stone. Breakfast at 7, meds at 8, therapy at 9, lunch at 12, as if structure could replace sanity. But time here is a trickster. It loops, it doubles back, it eats its own tail. I forgot how long I've been inside. Hours stretch into years, minutes collapse into seconds. Loneliness is not just silence, it's the absence of being seen. I could disappear tomorrow and the world outside would keep spinning. My name would never leave these halls. I am a ghost already, haunting myself. And that's what sucks. When the mental health field believes that structure is the treatment method for insanity. Just because you provide a schedule does not provide a solution to our problems. Again, that is not treatment. That's not proper treatment. Just because you provide breakfast and then snack time and, playroom time and coloring and a group therapy session and arts and activities in the rec room, that is not treatment. That's not helping us with our problems. And if you think it is, you don't deserve to be a professional. You don't deserve to be a medical professional if you think that's helping us, because you're blind. You're ignorant if you think that's helpful. And yet something in me claws back. The voices hiss, the shadows loom, but I refuse to bow completely. I write on scraps of paper, smuggle words in like contraband. I tell myself stories so I do not vanish. I press my palms against the cold wall and imagine it cracking open. Sunlight pouring in, I dream of coffee shops, of laughter, of sidewalks where no one stares. I dream of touching grass, real grass, not the painted kind they show us in therapy posters. Survival here is not about living, it is about remembering. There is something worth returning to beyond the locked doors. And it is. I totally believe that. That survival is not about living. That when we're in a psych ward, it's totally about survival. That's what we're thinking about nonstop, is how do we survive this horror movie? How do we survive how do we survive these nurses looking at us like we're monsters? And we know the medical professionals, we know the therapists, the doctors, the nurses, we know they all talk about us behind our backs when they're in their little cubicle with the glass to where we can't go past, and they're protected behind their glass wall in their working nurse station. We know they talk about us. They talk about how crazy we are, how demented we are, how insane we are. And so it's totally about survival at that point, to where we're just trying to live. And when that is happening, when your patients are just trying to survive, you know you're doing something wrong. You know you're not helping them. And that's the sad thing, is when your treatment methods are causing schizophrenics just to try to survive, you need to fix what you're doing. You need to reconsider what you're doing in that psych ward, in that hospital, because you're not helping them. You're just making them worse. One day they say my name differently, discharge, freedom, or is it just another word in their vocabulary to make me compliant? I walk out with a bag of pills, a folder of instructions, a smile they don't mean. The sun blinds me, too bright, too sharp. I stumble into it like a newborn, scared of air, scared of choice, but I know the truth. The institution never really leaves you. It follows in the sound of slamming doors and the echo of shoes on linoleum, in the way every shadow still feels too alive. It is a horror movie with no credits, no end scene, no escape. You carry it inside, and it carries you. And that's what it totally feels like, to where you never totally leave the psych ward, because the possible chance you could relapse is quite high, to where you probably will see the same nurse 6 months down the line, 3 months down the line, a month down the line. And so you always feel like a patient with a patient folder and that they're just going to continue checking those boxes. It truly never leaves you, never leaves your memory. It's forever stuck with you that you're just a schizophrenic in this system, in this machine. And every time you enter the machine, they're just covering their asses. They're just trying to protect themselves by saying, oh, we did this. We provided breakfast. We provided a art room. We provided, a group therapy session. We provided coloring books. We provided this, X, Y, and Z. And so we did our job. That's all they care about, is doing the bare minimum. And I wish psychiatric units would do more than the bare minimum. Actually try to help people. Be more sincere. Be more supportive. But they don't, because the system is broken. And the system will not improve unless we change the system. Unless we start over from scratch about what is important. What's our purpose? What's our mission? Is our mission to treat people like machines and zombies, or is our mission to treat people like human beings deserving of love and affection and sincerity and compassion? But that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of mental health, brothers and sisters. I hope that it was relatable to you guys in some way or form. And that's just the mental health part of this video. So next we're going to the devotional part of this video. We're starting at Matthew chapter 26, verse 47 to 56. Again, this is Matthew chapter 26, verse 47 to 56. While he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a great crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Seize him." And he came up to Jesus at once and said, "Greetings, Rabbi." And he kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you came to do." Then they came up and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then should the scriptures be fulfilled that it must be so?" At that hour Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has taken place that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled. Reflection. Peter makes a desperate effort to protect Jesus. See also John chapter 18, verse 10. But Jesus knows that the war he came to wage will not be won with the power of physical weapons and violence. His victory over sin, Satan, and death would be secured only by the sacrifice of his life upon the cross. The Old Testament had foretold that God's chosen servant, king, would have to suffer in order to accomplish his task. Jesus came to die, and he embraced that assignment with genuine willingness. Amen. I can't say it any better than that reflection, so I'm going to leave it at that reflection, brothers and sisters. Next, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 to 23. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 to 23. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. So the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in the blessings. Reflection. Though Paul has many rights, I am free from all. He lives as though he has none, a servant to all. For the sake of the gospel, he has become all things to all people. That is, he has adopted many customs and cultural practices that are not his own preferences, so that he might honor Christ and bless others by sharing the gospel with as many different kinds of people as possible. Even those of us who are not apostles are called to show enthusiasm for building up our neighbors so that they might possibly be saved. Amen. Psalm chapter 96, verse 2. Sing to the Lord, bless his name, tell of his salvation from day to day. Amen. It's just about spreading the good news of Jesus every day to your neighbors, to your coworkers, to your loved ones, to your spouse, to your brothers and sisters, your siblings, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, to everyone. And that's what Paul was doing. Paul learned about other customs and traditions, and he was getting to know people from all different walks of life so that he could better understand and better preach to them by using their own words, by using their own customs and traditions, by respecting them and loving them. And so Paul is a great example of someone who was able to learn about other ways of life, and he utilized those other ways of life to speak about the gospel, to preach the gospel. Beautiful, beautiful example. So, thoughts for prayer. Just as Jesus waged war by laying his life down for others, Paul laid down his personal rights and preferences in the hope that others might be saved. Pray for the willingness and wisdom to know how to show this same Christ-like love to your family, friends, neighbors, and enemies. Amen. Just as Christ laid down his life for others. Yes. Amen. Brothers and sisters, I hope and I pray that you better understand the reason why Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We're degenerate sinners. There's no way in hell we would be able to do it on our own. No way. We're unrighteous. We're wicked. We're evil people. So the only way we could earn eternal salvation, mercy, grace, the kingdom of heaven, is through Jesus Christ and his atoning sacrifice. We wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves, never. And I'm so blessed that he did that, because he knows I don't deserve it. He knows I would never be able to do it by myself. I'm a schizophrenic addict. I've hurt people. I've done terrible things in my past. So he knows I would be so far away from receiving grace, mercy, and salvation on my own. I've been locked up in psychiatric wards because I've been a danger to myself and a danger to other people. I mean, my last Christmas of 2024, my plan was to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, buy a couple knives, and walk around the mall looking dangerous and being frightening and being combative, to the point people would call the cops, and the cops would come and they would do what they have to do to make sure that I wasn't a threat. That was my plan. So I'm so far away from grace and mercy and salvation. And the only way is because Christ died for me. But brothers and sisters, I hope and I pray for you. I do. I know we might disagree on things, whether it's politics or lifestyle choices, or we might just disagree when it comes to basic things about life. But even if we disagree, I want you to know that I love you unconditionally. I love you because I'm your brother. And I want what's best for you. I want you to achieve success. I want you to find your purpose. I want you to find joy and peace and happiness in life. I want you to be able to wake up and just be able to smile and laugh and be thankful that that you're blessed with another day to live. But brothers and sisters, I'm gonna go. I have some plans this afternoon, this evening with some D&D buddies, so I'm gonna be playing some Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm praying for you guys. So thank you so much for listening. God bless you, and peace out, guys. I love you.